All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May monthly class. Tonight, we are going to talk about letting go, surrendering, detaching. As always, when I don't forget, I like to start our classes with a few deep breaths. So we're going to take a moment to do that. Just to unwind if you're watching live and it's the evening or whatever time of day you are watching this, if you need to just check in or you kind of need to unwind, let's take this opportunity. It grounds us back into our body, kind of sends those nice signals around, and also it allows us to absorb the information better too. So at your leisure, do 3 or 4 big deep breaths. Big inhale through your nose, exhale either through your nose or mouth, hand or hands over your heart. Hey, Allison, if you need a little extra like somatic support, you can keep your eyes open, you can keep your eyes closed. You can do some movement if it feels right. If your shoulders have been tense, notice if they feel like they're by your ears and just drop them. If your tongue has been up on the roof of your mouth, that's like a sign of stress. So drop it down onto the bottom and just notice if there's any tension in your body. This just gives you an opportunity to take that moment for yourself and check in and bring yourself back into the present moment, back into your body. So if you need to do like a big exhale just to kind of like let it out, and you visualize letting out all the stress of the day or whatever's going on, feel free to do that. So take a few moments. We're going to do 3 or 4 big deep breaths. If you need to keep going, and then I'll start the class. I'm going to take a quick drink, so feel free to start those deep breaths. Just remember to keep that exhale longer than the inhale, and it's all good. You can hold it at the top and the bottom if you like. Just a nice kind of pause before you inhale or exhale. Okay. Keep going if you feel called. Feel free. Today's topic. I feel like every topic we do is kind of a big topic that we can dive so deep into, and obviously we have limited time, and I go deeper into these in the courses and programs that I create. But just to start to introduce you to some of the concepts that have been really helpful to me and that I've been learning about. One of the This is one of the biggest ones, is surrender and detaching. Now, when we think about why we would need to let go, like, or why we attach to things, it can be anything from like physical, sentimental objects. It can be ideas. It can be something that we like are yearning for and really desire, and we are attaching to the outcome of how we think it should be. um Something tumultuous that's going on in your life right now that you think should be different. Now, if you've watched other trainings or my podcast, I talk a lot about the shoulds and how it's important to bring that word into your awareness. When I find myself telling myself shoulds, I pick it up as like a keyword to get curious about. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but it's something that I've brought awareness around, so that I can catch myself when the shoulds are things that aren't in alignment of like what I really want to do or what my soul's really pulling me towards. Now, I have a few notes here. Where do I want to start exactly? Letting go, surrendering, detaching. It is required to move through things that um, if we want to move forward with something, if we have goals, we have dreams, we have desires that we want to move towards, and it causes, especially if we have like a business. So if there's entrepreneurs in here, our businesses will take us through all of the inner work that we have to do. It'll show us all of what we need to work through, right? So there are certain points in our soul's evolution that we're meant to kind of up level, or I don't know if I really love that term, but evolve. We're meant to evolve. Our soul's meant to evolve. And in order to do that, we need to move into new territory, right? And simultaneously also understand that we can't bring all of the past and some belief systems. There's a timeline for it, right? It has served us. Our belief systems always serve us in some way until they don't. And then when we become aware of them, that they're no longer serving us and they're actually holding us back, especially if it's towards something we desire or see as success. We have to bring awareness to that and understand it, accept it, because as soon as we make something wrong, we're placing it outside of ourselves, and we can't process and move away from it, as if that's even the right term. We can't shed it if we place it outside of ourselves, because then we see it as separate. But really, all of these things are just pieces of us. We just have to take time to understand its function and accept it and be okay with that. Let go of the whatever label that we've been giving it, and then it will allow us to fully kind of just accept it, neutralize any charge around it, and then move forward. We also have to, what I wrote here, we have to surrender in the present as well when we're in a situation that is causing us a lot of suffering. If you've studied Buddhism at all, the talks a lot about how we cause our own suffering, and the biggest way we do that is through attaching to things, especially circumstances that are actually outside of us or out of our control. But what we do as a way to feel safe. Our ego also always wants to keep us safe, and our ego is a projection of the amygdala part of our brain, the fear and emotional center. This is what makes us get triggered and activated and dysregulated with things, because its sole purpose is to keep us safe. And in doing that also keeps us small. So when we start to have dreams and desires that we want to pursue, it challenges the ego, and it challenges the things that we hold on to keep us safe, to keep us small, to keep us moving forward, but also not really growing. We're just keeping on the same path. So when we see a new path we want to go down, it's scary, and our ego doesn't want us to let go of the things that are truly keeping us from getting to where we want to go. Now, why do we attach to things? We, for one, when we attach to circumstances, people, yeah, situations, there can be a sense of comfort or safety to it. You think of children with their security blankets and stuff, right? I had one for way too long, I will admit. But it gave me comfort wherever I went. I wanted it with me all the time. There's also, we hold on to things, we cling to things also that as like survival mechanisms. And some of these things we might not even be fully aware of. they can be subconscious as well. They could be behaviors, they could be beliefs that got us through a difficult time. Um, when we were in a survival mode, right? When we were just kind of drifting through life because we didn't know how to really take control of our life because everything around us was spinning and overwhelming. I felt that for the better part of a couple years after my dad died, right? So I can totally relate to all of this. This is why I talk about this stuff because I lived through it. I embodied it, and now I have enough space, enough capacity, enough distance to um reflect on it. I'm not speaking from the wound anymore. I've done the processing, I've done the work. Obviously, things still come up, of course, but I have created enough space, enough acceptance, enough love to heal these things that now I can talk about it from an embodied place. I've lived it, and it's part of who I am. Some of our early childhood experiences, we can decide things from just things that happen to us, and then especially if it ends up being something we decide about ourselves, like if we have an experience and we decide something about ourselves, it becomes part of our identity. When things are tied to our identity, it's like extra hard to shed because it's like I am. That is one of the most powerful statements you can say. So when we start to attach things to our identity and really identify with them, be it a belief or like a person. So, for the example of anyone who's lost a parent, especially if you had a loving relationship with them, there is a piece of identity that gets lost when they die. And yeah, if you've been through it, like you totally know. It's like, who am I without this person? We attach our identity to them. And of course, it's totally natural, right? These people were our guardians and our caretakers. So it's hard not to, it's just natural to have that piece of identity that belongs with them. when we when we're young and we are kind of like programming our brain, we're learning and we're very much a product of our atmosphere and what's around us. We I was saying this in the last, I think it was the last class. We will always choose if it comes between attachment and feeling secure with our attachment and belonging with others. I guess I can't say belonging because belonging is when you show up as yourself. Fitting in, this whole I have to fit in with the community. So with my community so that we survive, it's a primal thing versus I'm going to show up as myself and grow and become more of who I am as a little kid. If we have to choose between those things, if we end up in a situation where we have to choose between attachment and authenticity, we will always choose attachment because that is the survival part, and that will always that's stronger, at least when we're kids, right? We can start to break that down once we're older. This is what we do as the work. um and these things, especially if it's a very, what's the word I want to use? I have some wicked brain fog, so just bear with me a little bit. I'm struggling a little bit. If it's something really profound that we go through, it can end up a part of our identity, right? And we decide like, oh, well, I'm not good enough because of this, or I am this. The thing that just came to my mind was I was thinking about when I was a kid and I struggled with math. And instead of just saying this is something that is difficult, I made it like I am not good at math. It's just like I'm not capable of it instead of this is just something that is difficult. If that makes sense. Let me see. Reasons why we struggle to let go of these things that we're clinging to. Survival mechanisms for one, like I said. they'll always, the thing about survival mechanisms too is oftentimes they are things that don't make sense necessarily, and we may not be proud of them after. This could be numbing through drugs, alcohol, overeating, like things that we do when we're depressed. It's like we're going through an identity crisis, a situational depression, maybe clinical depression. But we have this internal mechanism that will cause us to do these things, especially if we're feeling too much emotion that's too painful. Our body will find ways to self-soothe, to numb, right? We zone out, we numb through scrolling too. If we like mindlessly scroll for a long time, it's kind of one of the things I am working on and being more conscious of. Zoning out and watching Netflix for hours. These things that just take us out of the present moment, and it's escapism, right? We're escaping big emotions, we're escaping difficult situations. These things allow us to survive when we're going through things that we otherwise don't feel like we might make it through. I can say over the last 2 years, there are many times where I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't even want to, I don't know if I will survive this pain. And the survival go to, the escapism, the numbing for me was sweets and food. And so my body has, extra weight on it now. And society kind of conditions us to look at these things and feel shame around it. And remember, guilt and shame are different. Guilt is actions that we wish we could have taken. So we could have some guilt around it as well. But shame is so much stronger because it's tied to our identity, who we are. And it's not just what we did and feeling bad about it. It's like who we are because of what we did. So there's a deeper layer there. And it's powerful. Shame will cause us to not talk about things when you think of taboo subjects. These are things that we need to bring to the surface. We need to talk about, because when shame is brought to the surface, it can dissipate, right? It doesn't have the power over us when we can vocalize it. These things are meant to get us through the times that we don't think we'll survive otherwise. And when we get through what we need to get through, and we realize that this thing, so for me, eating sweets and just all the things and putting on a bunch of weight, I'm at a place now where I'm not in that survival anymore. And I see the results of my actions. And at first I still have days we're human, right? I'm not going to say it's like I've fully let it go. Sometimes I'm like, I get a little discouraged, right? Because I see all the work, the work and like the different choices I need to make and stuff to um shed it, right? The difference is, instead of really shaming myself for it and making it wrong, I now see that that behavior was the survival part of me. That was like, we just got her, get her through this. We just got her, get her, we just have to get her to the end of this like darkness, back into the light. Then she will use her tools, and she's going to get, go into her next evolution, and she'll have the tools to get through it. So I want to keep going on this because I feel like I'm going on a side tangent, but essentially, like, these survival mechanisms make it really, really difficult to let go of whatever we're holding on to, whatever behaviors, whatever beliefs, whatever habits, whatever emotions, thoughts around things. Um, if we're afraid to move into the next evolution that our soul is pulling us towards, we will resist it, and we won't want to let go of what we need to leave in the past that's no longer serving us. The other thing is, I've mentioned identity a few times, especially if what we need to let go is tied to our identity. We often can feel loyal to the former parts of ourselves. We feel a loyalty towards them. And that makes it difficult to let go of those parts of ourselves, right? Because subconsciously, we feel like we're doing our past self a favor by staying loyal to ourselves in a way that maybe we weren't supported at that time. And now we need to just accept that we can we can nurture our past selves in ways through different work, shadow work, inner child work, but we also can let go of, release, detach, surrender these old parts of us because we simply can't bring them with us, especially if they're beliefs that just won't move us into where we want to go and will always hold us back. Whether they had a purpose in the past, they no longer do now. So we have to let it go. And there's no shame there doesn't need to be shame around it. And if there is, it'll just help, it'll make us cling even more, right? So to move forward, we have we have to uncover the roots of the beliefs that hold us back. That's one of the ways that we can do this. Now, oh man, this is such a deep topic, but whatever you're relating this to, if you have something in mind, I also just want to say that because I don't want to feel I definitely don't want to gaslight anyone by saying that we can do it and you feel like you're not, especially because I know for myself, I felt very much a victim to my circumstance. And if someone had said these things to me, I would have been like, yeah, right, like F off kind of thing, right? If you feel activated for this trigger, that's totally okay. Um, it often just means that you really care about it and there's something really deeper that's it's hitting on a wound, and this is the work. We get hit on our wounds that are inside, and that tells us that it's something that needs to be looked at. And if and when we're ready to, if we want to do this work, just because I say something that hits a wound doesn't mean you're ready to look at it, but you at least know it's there because you feel it energetically, emotionally, right? When you're ready to look at it, then this is when we put the tools in place, we do the work. If it's a belief that's holding you back, you have to we have to uncover the belief, right? What am I believing to be true that I need to rewrite the belief around? These can be beliefs. Often the beliefs aren't even ours. They're beliefs that we inherited from our parents, the people that were surrounding us and most influencing us, our developing brains. So a lot of that work, when we realize it's like, oh man, no, that's my mom's voice in my head, or that's my dad's voice, or whoever, when we, especially if we're able to kind of pinpoint and identify, it can sometimes, if it's not like a really deep-seated belief that our identity is attached to, it allows it to be easier to detach from, because then we realize, hey, it's not even mine. So this is when we go into a little bit of contemplation. Like, is this okay? Ask yourself, is this belief true for everyone? Or whatever I'm thinking or feeling, is it true for everyone? Because if it's not true for everyone in the world, it's a belief that you have that you're holding, and that's okay. Is it for your highest good? Is it allowing you to evolve, or is it holding you back? When you can answer that question, you know whether it can come with you into your next evolution or not. Right? It's a yes or a no. Is it serving your highest good? Or is it like making you suffer in daily life? And if you decide that it's not for your highest good, and again, depending on how deeply rooted it is, because some of these you can go through these questions, this pondering, and just release it. If it's not for your highest good, can you choose to believe something different that will support your highest good? If so, how would you rewrite it? So just reframing it and deciding that, hey, you're the author of your own life. And just because you were programmed when your brain was vulnerable and developing doesn't mean you need to keep these beliefs forever, especially if they're not helping you to move towards your desires. I wrote here, knowing and understanding that the only constant is change. So we're always changing. Our soul is always looking to evolve to put us on the highest path that gives us the most joy. It's this human ego experience, the clinging, the attachments to things that we cause our own suffering around, right? And I take what you want, leave the rest as always, but I believe we come here with lessons to learn, with experiences to have, but also because this human experience is just full of duality, right? So it's like I see us in our essence as this beautiful light, this soul, and we come into this density that we put all this conditioning on layers and layers on top of it, and it kind of dims the light, right? And then we have to take the layers off and remember who we are and shed these layers so that we can brighten our light again and be lighthouses for others, not only for ourselves, but others. The more we do this work, the more people are drawn to us too, right? So when we can understand that the only constant is change, we just know that we're going to continue on this path of evolution. And organically through that, we're going to have to let things go along the way. Change is required for soul growth. I wrote that one down. We must leave behind our past identities to move into the next evolution of ourselves. It can be hard. I know when I left teaching swimming lessons and lifeguarding, I still wanted to keep up my lifeguarding. And I don't know if I still can or if I'd have to take the full course again. I think I've more or less let it go, but I was really attached to the fact that I had been a lifeguard for like 10 years and it was part of my identity, right? So then to have it expire and stuff and go, well, do I still want to research? Because there was I don't know if they've changed the rules. They may have started shifting it, but essentially you can still be a lifeguard. You just can't work as one unless you do the recertification. And it didn't like you could go 10 years without you would still like you just have to do the certification. As long as you could pass the recertification, you can still be a lifeguard and work as one, right? But you just have to be have done the recertification within 2 years to actively work as one. And it was really hard for me to kind of shed that identity part of I am a lifeguard. It's like, am I a lifeguard though, or do I lifeguard as a job, right? It's a difference between something we do and something we believe we are. And the attachment gets deeper when we believe we are something, right? Um, it can be the same with illness, the difference between like, I have this and like I feel depressed versus I am depressed. Can you feel the difference in those two statements? And you can use those statements with any type of illness or other example. When we okay, when we want to shed the past versions of ourselves, when we're able to kind of identify it, it can bring up stuff, right? Sometimes it can be difficult and we might not always be proud of these things or um, if they've been holding us back. Sometimes we cling to it because it feels safe. Sometimes we realize these things inside of ourselves and we don't feel good about it. However, like I talk about with emotions, if we can kind of find a way to neutralize it and just accept it for what it is, look at circumstances. When we can, it doesn't mean we have to like it. My late Aunt Shirley, my late and great Aunt Shirley used to say, Lauren, you don't have to like it. And I was like, amen. Because we went through a lot of tumultuous stuff in a few years that we sure as hell didn't like, but the work when we were not so deep in our our grief and struggle was to find acceptance for what is and to release the attachment to how we think it should be or should have been. Now, I haven't spoken about this publicly much. I kind of allude to it. I don't know that I'll go fully into it, but after my dad died, that next year was the worst year of my life. Not only because I lost my dad, but because family members, they got caught up in stuff and we all make our choices, but they lied to me and my sisters. And essentially, they told us a story to keep us off their back. This was my dad's wife, his widow, to keep us away from her. And when we asked about our dad's things to carry out his wishes, he wanted us to have some of his things and just be able to go through stuff. She started taking it to an auction. And I discovered the auction online. So we had to buy back my dad's things. And when I asked family members about it, point blank, in their home, to their face, they told me they didn't know anything about it. They did know things about it. They were taking the stuff to the auction. So I immediately, like, oh my gosh, for months while we were like, anytime the auction came up, because this is an auction my dad and I used to watch together. Anytime, and I had an intuitive hit that night. It told me, and we had people over. I was like, there's no reason for me to go on right now to look at this. But I had this strong voice in my mind saying, you have to go and look at this auction. And I was like, what the hell? So I went on, flipped a couple pages, and I saw something, and I was immediately, it was like, that's your dad's. Like, that's my dad's. And I was like, oh my God, I think like this is my dad's. I recognized it, started flipping through more stuff, send it to my sister, my mom and stuff. And it ended up being the most dysregulating time of my entire life. I was so anxious. I was distraught. I've never been in an emotional state like that ever in my life. I honestly, I wasn't sure if I would survive it. I was so devastated because it was another layer on the grief with my dad, and losing him was enough, let alone dealing with this. And really what came to the root of it was I was clinging, and I always have. I know this about myself. I have a really strong sentimental, like I attach to I attach sentimentality to physical objects, like yeah, people's belongings and stuff, right? So to have my dad die and quickly and tragically, like it happened so quickly, and then not have the opportunity, being told that we could, but we had to wait, and then finding his stuff on the auction. Oh my God, I just spiraled because it's not supposed to be this way, right? That is what I kept saying. It should be some other way. We should have the opportunity. Are his children. We should have first dibs. The work in it, once I could like regulate my nervous system enough that I wasn't an absolute emotional like basket case, was to start to come to terms of acceptance of what is. Accepting that not everyone has the same intentions that I do and my sisters. Not everyone has loyalty and integrity to carry out someone's wishes. Not everyone has the integrity to tell the truth, the values. And when it comes to people we love and trust, and that trust gets broken in an instant in a time that is like super dark and you need them the most, there's an attachment there, right? And when it gets severed in a way, I guess I say severed because I chose to sever that ultimately. But there's a part of me that wanted to people please the hell out of it and just like make it better. But I was so devastated, I was so betrayed that I couldn't at the time. Like there's no way because I there were times I thought I was going crazy and I had to say to my husband like, what did I do wrong to deserve this? What did I do wrong? I was so attached to the idea that I deserved to have my dad's things and I think we do, but the reality is I had to come to the acceptance of what is, that not everyone has the same values, the same integrity, the same intentions. I knew this about his wife. Um, and I had just to accept that it didn't play out that way. And part of the reason was because my dad made decisions in who he got involved with, that changed the total dynamic of our lives years ago. And I mean, actions have consequences, right? So I was angry at him. Sometimes I'm still like, what the hell, dad? But I had to just accept that he made these decisions. Unfortunately, it then also influenced my sisters and I, but it is what it is, right? And I don't say that lightly. So if you're going through something that there's like no way you can see the acceptance of it right now, that is okay because it took me a long time. Just know that putting your tools in place, finding a therapist that helps you, doing things like cord cutting, like, oh, just whatever tools, whatever modalities you need to support your nervous system, to support your soul through this unbearable situation. Just know that it's going to lead you to a place where eventually, I hope in the future, like this, the close future for you, you'll be able to detach, to surrender to what is, because in the surrendering, in the detachment, we're actually able to take a step back. So I wasn't like in the thick of it. It's like I can step outside of my own self, the circumstance, look at it from above, see the bigger picture without being emotionally attached to it, and see the lesson. And you can do that through energetic work if and when you're ready. This is something that I worked with the women in Build Your Soul Care Tool Belt. We did a little bit of this work to introduce them, but as I learn and progress and evolve, I'll be able to lead people through it more intimately, like one-on-one, and do the deeper work. But I'm not going to dive in over my head with it, right? It's something I've done, and I can talk about it from my own experience, but it's something I will be doing in the future to help people get through difficult things, and find peace and acceptance and help to just let go the attachments that we hold with these things. And I'll tell you, it saved my life. Doing this work saved my life because I was able to detach and see the bigger picture and see that there's nothing, there's a lot of like, if I had just done this, I could have changed the outcome. No, these people are who they are. There's nothing I could have done differently to change or sway or manipulate their intentions. It's who they are. It's their character, right? So the lesson for me was to accept what is. It was shitty. I didn't like it. It I've never been in a deeper place. I've never been so knocked down and in the dark. But like there's nothing I could have done differently. I got a really strong sense through that experience. It really was a dark night of the soul for me of connecting. Not only did I learn who my true like community was, the people that really backed me through everything, because they really held me up when I could not. I learned who my people are, who I can truly trust and who really have my back. And I really got a better understanding of my own worth because now down the road, one of those family member has passed, and you know the kind of like the inner child last, like an earlier version. They still live inside us. We can decide who takes the wheel when our wound gets hit. Does that wounded part of us take the wheel and do the impulsive thing? Or do we feel the wound and say, oh, you're there, you're still there. That's okay, I love you. But I have some better tools now. I have boundaries now. Um, I respect myself a whole lot more, and I I choose not to engage or change the circumstance. Um, it led me into a time of empowerment. I feel like I had no choice, but that's kind of part of the thing, right? Our soul will like push us to the limits. The other thing through that's related to the letting go and detaching, because I don't want to get totally on a side tangent. I hope it's all relevant. Let me know if there's any questions along the way. Are we good? Are we flowing together? It also allowed me to detach. I wouldn't say all the way. I'm still very sentimental and stuff, but I don't look at objects and stuff quite the same way. I don't have quite the same attachment to it. So this lesson, this experience, I think my soul had to go through it because it was a really big, like, I attached the crap to things and was, yeah, very, very attached to things. I needed to learn that lesson. But it's kind of neutralized that charge, and things are still, I still get attached to certain things, but not really in the same way. So it's been really interesting how that whole situation, when we just like end up all in on it, and we eventually, like, we put the tools to work so that we can eventually just embrace it and get through it to the other end and then learn from it. We take all these beautiful nuggets that just change our lives in the most beautiful ways. um I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. Not my worst enemy. I don't really have any enemies, I guess, but I don't think I'd change it either, because I'm just not the same anymore, and in a better way. So, what do we want to say? We should finish up here. I'm just going to read my notes really quickly. Are there any questions? Everyone doing well? Okay. So, the big lesson here is, if you're going through something that you are very attached to the outcome, ask yourself, what am I, like, get curious, right? And everything you feel is valid. I definitely don't want to invalidate anyone. Um, get curious. I'm like the curiosity coach, right? I teach people how to get curious about things, because then we can learn and understand. And the journalist in me, but why I was drawn to journalism, probably because I like to ask questions and understand things. But ask yourself what, you can journal on it, you can meditate on it, you can, work with a spiritual coach or any coach that does this type of energetic work, but so they can guide you through it. Um, but like, get curious as to, like, what you're clinging to exactly, like, what is the outcome you need so badly, and like, why do you need it so badly, right? Is it tied to your identity? Um, I keep thinking about, like, for some reason, like motherhood, right? Or parenthood. And oh my gosh, like, my heart aches for anyone who is navigating that journey. I can think of that, like, that is so deep. There's so much there. If you can't even imagine anything outside of that, like, that's okay. And there's other topics too that are just that deep, right? But um, like, what, that's an identity thing, right? Like, we yearn to be a parent, or it's part of who we are, who we want to be, who we've been, depending on the experience, right? Is there, hmm, Can you imagine even detaching for a moment and hating the circumstance, but seeing that we can't necessarily change the result, at least not right in this moment, right? Is there any peace? Can you bring yourself any peace in the moment of the suffering? Any of it? Hate it. Hate every single bit of it. Like when I was in the middle of all of it. And honestly, there were times where there was no acceptance. So if you're there, it's all good. These are things we can kind of keep kind of on the sidelines a little bit, because then maybe as things progress, I hope that they get better. Then we can revisit it, right? So it's not to say that you have to do it right now. Maybe it's just not available to you, and that's totally fine. Totally fine. Whatever you're going through. Yeah, and just like I've been saying this whole time, especially if it's tied to our identity, it is so much deeper. So it's not something, I don't want to say like just do this, it'll be fine. It's not always. There are just times where you can't go there. Margot, I know you know what I mean with what you've been navigating to. Some days it's just like, yeah, no, it's none of it's good, none of it's okay, none of it, I don't accept any of it. And um what tools can you use to just hug your heart, right? Like what can you do to survive through this for now? And then when you start to come out on the other end, that's when you can start asking the questions, because this is what will lead you to detaching to when you can see the bigger picture. And my spiritual coach led me through some really transformative work, but I was essentially able to, through meditation and stuff, see the bigger picture and kind of get the lesson intuitively. And when I could see the lesson from a place that was outside of mine and the other people involved's ego, when it's like soul to soul, there was a beautiful message in there. And that's super, like, it helped me release the shoulds and what should have been, and what I felt that I was entitled to, right? I'm sure if my dad was here, he would say that my sisters and I were entitled to these things because he did before he passed. But the reality is he's has no say anymore, right? So um yeah, this got deep, hey? But it's I hope that there was some comfort in there, somewhere in there. Like I said, if you felt triggered by it, that's okay. It just means that you care about something deeply. There's something in there. And one day I hope that it's okay to look at it and heal it when you're ready, if and when you're ready. I did have another story, but I don't know. Should I tell the other story? Or should we just keep going? I wanted to reiterate just to make sure. When we accept the past version of ourselves that got us through what we needed to get through, we also like this is why it's awesome to work with someone who knows how to lead you through this type of work. But essentially you're seeing that version, like if it's something that you're not proud of, right? But you need to shed it, but you're having a difficult time. Like I could shame myself for the version of me that decided to eat all the sweets for so long and then gaining all this weight. That's not serving me anymore, right? It's just making me feel weighed down. And um yeah, it's just, I don't know, I just feel kind of uncomfortable. But I could shame that version of me, but I see the function in it. I've taken the time to kind of step back, and instead of making her wrong and setting her apart from myself, because I can never kind of detach from it if she's fully outside of me, and she'll have my power, she'll have the power. I can choose to love that version of me that wanted me to survive so deeply that she found any which way to numb those difficult feelings, those big feelings, that pain, that suffering, to get me through it. And actions create results. So now it's my choice to say, okay, I'm here now, and I love that version because I survived it. I'm still here. And now I get to choose to take different actions so that a future part of me will create new results. And then I can look back at this version of me right here and be like, good job, girl, right? It's a good job either way. I survived the thing that I couldn't navigate myself through very well, at least for a time. I did what I could with the tools, but it was just when it's unknown territory, sometimes you're just floating by and the waves are just hitting you and taking your breath away, and you just gotta like do what you need to do to survive. And we gain more tools along the way so that the next time life knocks us down, hopefully we don't get as dysregulated and stuff. But you never know, right? I can't say I won't again. Because I still hopefully have lots more life to live. Um, I talked very briefly about like shadow and inner child work. These are a couple of the ways that we can do this self-discovery and uncover these things so that we can we're shining lights on the parts of us that we're just not that are kind of like driving behind the scenes, but we don't see, right? Journaling, meditation, or other ways to do this self-discovery work, cord cutting, other energetic modalities. And yeah, let me see here. I wrote here, accepting what is for circumstances reduces or depending on the circumstance, eliminates the suffering. Even if it gives you a little bit of relief to just say like, I'm not okay with what's happening, or I guess that's not an acceptance. I don't like what is happening right now, but I understand that this is what's happening for whatever reason. And sometimes, oh man, we always want to like solve our own problems, and sometimes the things are just outside of ourselves. Is there a way that you can just surrender it? Do you have a faith? Do you believe in a higher power? Is there something that you can, when I was talking about getting some relief earlier, right? Like sometimes we can't see it, sometimes we don't have the capacity. This is the exact time if you have a belief system where you're like, literally give it to God, give it to whatever, and just say like, I trust, I trust that it will be taken care of, and the result will be for my highest good. The result will be for my highest good. I give it to you. And I had to do that a lot while my dad was sick. That's a whole other story. We're finishing up in time here, but whew, there's so many aspects I could talk about with regards to letting go and surrendering, so many different areas of our lives, different capacities, right? Some easier than others. Some it's just like a quick, like, hey, that's not even my own thought. I'm gonna let that go because it's not moving me towards this next desire, this next joyful thing. It can be as simple as that to as like, oh man, yeah, as crippling as just a big life event, right? And I had also written here, attachment to outcome gives us the false belief that we have control. So that's where the surrendering comes. Give it to God. If you believe in a higher power or just the universe or circumstance, there's got to be something better for you, because I don't believe we're here to just suffer, right? We go through these things so that we can remember and connect deeper to who we are, who we truly are, and who we're meant to be. And it's through those times, like we don't evolve when things are easy, right? So how do we move through this journey of difficulty, this dark path, and surrender what is just absolutely crippling us? How can we surrender even a little bit, even just for a moment, give ourselves some relief through the journey? If you can do that, then oh man, I'm sending you so much love and such big hugs. It's not easy, and some days you just can't. I get it. All right, I think we're gonna finish up here. Are there any questions? I'm gonna go back through the um comments really quickly before we finish. Oh, it's not letting me expand it. Sorry, Allison, I can't see all of your comment. I'm tapping on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Allison was talking about when her mom passed and the nurse suggesting that she not sit near her head because they were too attached when she fell asleep. So whoever came to meet from the other side to meet her mom made Allison fall asleep at the time of death so she could easily detach. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's magic, right? There's so many, and especially when you go through really profound things or just things that happen that you can't explain, and you just see the nugget in it. The whole situation with my dad at the end there, um, it's still so bittersweet. I can't, it's hard for me to still talk about sometimes, but yeah, it was just it all happened for a reason, and I had to surrender at the time to even just get through it, but it was taken care of and he was okay. So, all right, I'm gonna jump off because we've been an hour. I hope there was some good stuff here for you to take away. If there's any questions, pop them in the comments. Yeah. In terms of what's coming up next, there's a soul care hour on the 26th, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then I'll work on um June's schedule. Sorry, brain fog. I did a daytime soul care hour this month, worked really well. So I think I'll do one daytime, one evening, and plus our, you're welcome, Margot. Thanks for hanging out. Plus our monthly class. I'll decide on a topic for June and announce it. Also, still launching the abundant, oh my gosh, why is my brain is just not braining today at all. Authentic Business Foundation. However, I think I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I think I'm going to pre-record and then release it as a bundle instead of doing it live. It's interesting how the last couple things I've launched, or programs, courses, series, whatever you want to call it, things have kind of evolved as I went. I didn't have all the details, so I'm talking about it. It feels good, but then like the energy changes and I got kind of quiet. I was also in like a group call with one of my mentors and we kind of worked through it a little bit, and I was like, "You know what? No, I'm going to go in a different direction." So we're allowed to decide that when the energy shifts and we just feel better about something different. It's not about like, oh, I need to fix it. It's just like, no, this actually feels better. So I'm gonna follow the breadcrumbs. So I think what I'm gonna do is record them and then release them as a bundle. So if you're interested in it, with what I've been talking about, there's a post pinned at the top of the community. Let me know. The cost is $111, and when it's ready, I'll announce it again, but I still might talk about it while I'm kind of getting it ready. The modules will still be the same. It'll just be presented in a different way. So it's going to be super potent. It's taking topics like this and just going deeper and helping to give you the tools to empower yourselves. I feel like the best coaches that I've worked with aren't ones that like give me this cookie cutter formula for anything. They give me tools and I choose the ones that work best for me, and then they lead me on like how to use them, and I do the work myself, right? They just hold space and they, yeah, create a safe environment, safe space for us to do the work, to uncover the things, work through it, and come out the other end stronger. So that's my goal. That's what I'm moving towards with what I'm learning and starting to teach in deeper ways. So have a wonderful evening, day, whatever rest of the time it is for you. And this will be a podcast episode Monday, so if you prefer to listen, it'll be on there. And hopefully I see you not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, 8 p.m. for soul care hour. Come on, we'll talk about life and soul care tools, and it's been lovely the last few, so I'm loving them. Anyway, take care everyone. We'll talk soon. Bye.